here, and I'm bringing you a speculation and analyzing video on the Sun and Moon trailers. My cat is determined to ruin my night. He's found one of his toys that he has hidden and is destroying everything in order to play with the toy. So, that's a thing. Anyways, sorry about that. Another thing that I want to apologize for really quickly, just before we get started, is that this is going to be a very, very, very long and in-depth video. So, if you're very impatient, I apologize. But I have a very strong feeling that a lot of these things that we will be doing, or that I will be analyzing and speculating on, will probably be correct. So, please bear with me on that. First of all, I just wanted to bring up that the Pokken tournament, I don't particularly play the game, so I'm not going to pretend to be able to give you any valuable information on that at all. However, I just want to let you know, in case you haven't already heard and you do play Pokken Tournament, Darkrai has been confirmed for Pokken Tournament. I do not know how that works. I thought the game was already out and complete and everything else, so the only thing I can figure is maybe it's something kind of like a mystery gift or something like that. However, just in case you do play the game and you haven't heard, I figured it might be nice if you are watching my video that you find out that Darkrai has been confirmed. But anyways, on to everything else. We are going to be doing some speculation and some analyzing of the Pokemon Sun and Moon trailer that most recently came out. It's a trailer that appears to not really give any information at first glance, but if you really dig deep into it, it really shows off a lot. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that the Alola region is very similar to the Orange Islands and to the Hoenn region, and as we all know, everyone's biggest complaint about the Hoenn region was there was just too much water. And whenever I say too much water, I really mean that there was just way too much water. You would spend days surfing and most likely lost trying to get through that route in order to find the next place that you were supposed to be. And there were 3 island cities that you had to get to other than the mainland that you had to get to through surfing. Although the first one, you didn't have to worry too much about it because the first island city, the first time that you want to go there, you could have the dude give you a ride, which was great because you didn't get surfed by that point in the game. And then the 3rd generation remakes, they addressed that slightly and they did make it a little bit better, but they still did not make it any less water. They just made it a little bit less likely for you to get lost, it seemed like. But still remained the issue of too much water. And with the Alola region being very, very, very similar to the Orange Islands, which is, I find to be kind of funny because I really thought that the Orange Islands were going to be based off of Hawaii, not the Alola region. But here we are finding out that we have a region based off of Hawaii, so I don't know, maybe the Orange Islands are based off of something in the South Pacific, closer to Asia, I don't know. But we have the issue yet again that it is very obviously going to be too much water. And sorry, you guys. Was having a bit of a problem there. But I really think that although they said that they're not going to be removing items in in and functionalities in this game, just like they say with every other game. Although I never really believed that statement because we lost the ability to have Pokemon following you from Heart Gold and Soul Silver. We lost the Dream World and the Cross Transceiver from Black and White. We have lost a lot of items and functionalities throughout the generations, and yet with every new game they always say the same thing, which is that we're not going to be removing any items or functionalities in the game. So, I don't know. But, anyways, I do think that they will be completely revamping the way that HMs will be working. For instance, surfing, soaring, or flying, and smashing rocks or using strength, I think that they're going to be implementing riding Pokemon instead. I think that the saddles are also going to play a huge role in this. If you've watched the advertisement, then you know, or the trailer, then you know that there will be saddles for both Lapras and for Sharpedo. And some people are speculating that there will be racing. Some people are speculating that there will be people that you can rent a Pokemon, kind of like you could in X and Y. Are you wanting to be famous? Is that what's going on? The camera's over here if that's what you want. Sorry, you guys, if you watch my videos, then you know that Aries loves to be on TV. So, there's that. Anyways, I personally speculate that they're going to be removing the use of HMs as moves, although HMs will still be available to be used as moves in battle, although many of them I don't see the point at all. I think that they're going to be making it so that you ride a Pokemon, and while you're riding that Pokemon, you come across the first cut tree that you have to cut down, and the Pokemon that you're riding just so happens to have the ability to cut down that tree without having to learn the HM. But in order to have your Pokemon cut down that tree, maybe you still have to have that badge or whatever. But I do think that there is that. And then there, of course, because of the fact that you're not going to get Surf after the first badge, and you're most likely going to have to be going to surf to the next island long before you get the ability to surf. There will be rentals, or like what was also shown, there will be the ability to ride a ferry to another island. So, and that's ferry like the boat, not ferry like the new type. But I don't think that they're going to be requiring you to have a move on one of your Pokemon in your party that makes that Pokemon particularly more useless than it normally would have been, and causing us to do what many of us are guilty of, and I know I am very guilty of that, and that is the HM Slave. Which, the first normal type for the region that you always encounter is usually a really good use for that. But, I mean, let's face it, that still takes up a very important slot in your Pokemon party, and it just makes everything more difficult. And it would be so much better if you had, let's say, a water type in your party, and you could just surf because you have a water type in your party. Or a type that uses cutting type moves, and because of that you can cut down trees, or a rock ground, or fighting type to smash a rock, or whatever, and that would be extremely useful. I don't know how it will work. I personally, if I was the one making Sun and Moon, that's the way I would have done it. But then again, if I was making Pokemon games, that's the way I would have done it from the very beginning, because everybody hates HMs, and there are so few that are actually useful. But, anyways, moving on. Oh, wait. Before we move on, the last thing that I wanted to add to that is, in Kalos, whenever you surfed on the back of a Lapras, instead of getting that weird sprite of just some random unknown well that nobody really knows what it is, you would get the actual sprite of riding on a Lapras. And in X and Y, or not in X and Y, in Oras, if you did it with a Sharpedo, not only did you get the sprite of a Sharpedo, but you also got the boosted speed. And I think that that will most likely be what the saddles are for, is maybe you can buy them, and when you buy the saddles, you get that boosted speed or some other special ability, or you rent a Pokemon like you would in X and Y, and that Pokemon would eventually my brain will work correctly. That Pokemon would be able to allow you to circumnavigate the need for the badge that allows you to surf or whatever. But personally, I like the idea of buying and equipping a saddle to a Pokemon, making it have special abilities or whatever. But that's just a thought. Now, moving on to this one is purely speculation. I really have not seen enough of the overworld in any of the trailers and teasers and everything else that Pokemon has given out so far to very clearly speculate on this. However, I strongly suspect this has been something that Pokemon trainers throughout history have wanted for a long time, and that is the fact that in the anime, you know, you don't walk through the tall grass and all of a sudden a Pokemon pops out and attacks you and wants to kill you. You walk around in nature and Pokemon just are everywhere, and that is one thing that everyone has wanted, and it's one thing that anyone that I personally have talked to about this have all said the same thing, which is that it just doesn't make any sense. And I really feel like with the view that they give you of the overworld, just how detailed it is, that it is a strong possibility that for the first time in a Pokemon game, instead of encountering Pokemon by walking through grass, you will encounter at least some Pokemon by walking around in the wild and meeting them just out in the wild. And that brings up, I did not want to call you. And that brings up one thought to mind that I personally would really like to see, and that is a completely new way of finding shiny Pokemon. And that thought was brought up because of the fact that a lot of people are speculating that the starters are going to be shiny locked, because of the fact that you're going to be seeing them in the overworld before you actually get them, and then get to initiate your first battle with them, making them appear as either shiny or not shiny, which is generally how you find out whether or not your starter is shiny. And one thing that they're doing that they haven't done before is you actually meet the starters in the overworld before you ever get to have your first battle with them. And in my opinion, as well as many others, they're most likely going to shiny lock the starters, um, just like they have with a lot of legendaries like Zygrade, because of the fact that you do see them in the overworld, and you um, do see them with their natural color palette, and that means that they will not be shiny in the battle, because Pokemon Company seems to think that we don't like shinies enough to not pick apart the fact that it's all of a sudden changed colors whenever we entered into battle with it, which honestly even as shiny hunters most likely would, but I don't think that it would be such a big deal that we would actually care. That's just a quick thought. But I would like to see a change in the way that you get shinies in the game. It just, myself personally, being a shiny hunter and a shiny breeder, you know, I'll shiny hunt for a little while, and I'll shiny breed for a little while, and then I get bored of it, and it really, it takes away the joy of having a shiny, in my opinion, a little bit more than it would if it was completely different. I don't know. It just feels like you put so much work into something and then you get a shiny Pokemon, and really that shiny Pokemon is going to be no different than any other just random Pokemon that you caught in the wild, which means that it really doesn't have much competitive use, because its IVs are probably going to be crap, its moves aren't going to be, you know, anything special, because it's only going to have the generic moves that you get by leveling that Pokemon up. You're not going to get any special egg moves, and a lot of other things like that, which I have had shinies that I have shiny bred that have had really awesome egg moves, but that just makes the shiny breeding that much more difficult and complicated. But anyways, moving on to the next thing. One of the things that everyone is flipping out about is that in the trailer, there's a battle royale, and in that battle royale, which is something that they're showing off, which I really, really like the idea of the battle royale, and I can't wait for that to happen. I'm definitely going to be completely abandoning any kind of an other format just so that I can only play in battle royale, because it seems like it's going to be a lot more fun. But everyone's freaking out because one of the trainers shown in the battle royale screen isn't wearing a hat, and oh my god, you guys, that means that we cannot wear a hat for the first time in a Pokemon game. The one thing that has annoyed everyone with X and Y is the fact that you don't have to wear a hat anymore. But I'm sorry to say, I don't think so. I really, really, really don't think so. I would like for that to be the case, but I don't think it's going to be. Because, first of all, really looking at those trainers, they do not look like just different variants that you can create through customization of your character so that it's for people Wi-Fi battling. And the trailer does kind of tease that that's what it is, but they don't appear to be that. What it looks like is it's going to be you up against rivals, and one of those rivals is not wearing a hat, because the individual that isn't wearing a hat does not look at all to me like one of the individuals that you can play as through customization and all of that fun stuff. So no, I don't think that they're going to take away the hat thing. I would like for them to do that, and I do think that it is a possibility, but I don't think that that's proof enough that the hat thing is not going to happen, because there have been rivals in the past that don't wear a hat. In fact, I'm battling against one right now. So, you know, there's that. And I would love to see it, you know, play out differently. I really would. I loved the fact that you could have different haircuts, although there weren't that many for male characters in X and Y. But I love the fact that you could have different haircuts, and some of them looked really good. But the hat always seemed to ruin it. So, you know, it's kind of a pain. But anyways, moving on. At 54 seconds into the trailer, they show off a screen showing Eevee, and it kind of looks like a Pokedex screen. And that's what everyone's thinking, is that it's the Pokedex screen for Eevee, because there are 8 empty Pokeballs surrounding Eevee. I do not think that that is the case. I do not think that is a Pokedex screen, and I don't think what everyone's biggest fear is that means that there won't be an Eevee evolution, and it's been confirmed is the case. I think that is the capture screen. Or it might very well be the Pokedex screen, but I highly doubt it, because right kind of below Eevee's head, overlaid over Eevee's body, is a picture of Pokedex info with the number and what would be writing if any of us had microscopes in order to read it. And I think that is, when you capture Eevee, that shows up in the do you want to give it a nickname screen. So I don't think that is the Pokedex entry screen, because why would they have the picture of the Pokemon with the Pokedex entry overlaid it that you can't actually read, and then below it the actual Pokedex entry? That seems a little bit too redundant. And also, everyone gets way too hyped about a new Eevee evolution. Pokemon made probably several $1 million just off of Eevee toys and Sylveon toys and other Eeveelution toys, just because of the fact that they introduced a new Eevee evolution. Myself personally, although they have disappeared, I had went out and spent way too much money on getting all of the Eeveelution and the Eevee plushies that you could buy at Walmart, which they kind of got stolen. But, you know, anyways, I probably spent somewhere around $100 just on plushies, just because of the fact that I wanted the Eeveelutions. And then, because they were almost always sold out, I would go ahead and just say screw it and buy the other plushies that they had available, like the Froakie and the other X and Y plushies. The only one that I didn't buy was Hawlucha, because I don't remember if they had a Hawlucha. I think they did. I remember seeing something with Hawlucha, and I don't like Hawlucha at all. And you can hate me for that if you want. But anyways, I don't think that they're going to pass up the opportunity to make another Eevee evolution, especially where they only gave us one in the last generation, and everybody was expecting a second one. There's never been only one Eevee evolution introduced before, and it wasn't right. And just the amount of money alone that they would make on Pokemon stuff because of the fact that they introduced a new Eevee evolution is argument enough that it's still a possibility, and I really don't think that this confirms that there's not going to be another Eevee evolution. However, to everyone who is watching this, especially those of you who are gifted artists, I have a story to tell you, and I beg you to take on the moral of this story. Whenever I was, how old was I? I want to say I was 9 or 10 years old. I barraged Nintendo with phone calls every day until, hang on, I have to spell this. Is it D-U-C-H-E or D-O-U-C-H-E? Douche. Yep. I barrage Nintendo every day, multiple times a day, with phone calls. And the reason why I was barraging them with phone calls is because I had come up with the concept for the best game system ever, in my opinion. Now, at that time, if you remember, we were still playing Game Boy Advances. So it was, at the time, better than anything that we had available to us, and that was a handheld game system resembling a laptop where you could open it up that had 3D capabilities, and you could play any Nintendo game that has ever been made on this system. And instead of having to buy discs or cards or cartridges in order to put the games into the system, you could buy them through the internet and have them put directly onto the game system. Now, this is no lie, and if you don't believe me, that's fine. I don't care. But if you want to confirm my story with at least some kind of evidence that might confirm it to be possibly true, then call Nintendo and give them the idea for some kind of a system or some kind of a game, and you will get the same answer I got, which is I had to call them repeatedly until finally I got somebody to just listen to my idea, because they refused to. They told me that because of legality issues and other things like that, I could potentially sue Pokemon or Nintendo because they stole my idea and blah 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 blah. And finally I got one person to listen to me, and I explained to him I didn't care about the money, I just wanted the freaking system. I didn't care if I got credit, I didn't care if this, that, or another thing. I just wanted to have the system to be able to play it, because I wanted to be able to play the older games with newer graphics and have them look better and all of that. And now this is whenever I was 9. It was a very long time later that they came out with exactly the idea that I had given them. But before then, they came out with the Game Boy Advanced SP very shortly after I gave them that idea. And the Game Boy Advanced SP was resemblant of a laptop, and one of the functions that it had was one of the ones that I suggested, which was that you no longer had to buy batteries in order to, provide power to your game. And then later on they came out with a DS, and it had an eShop. I think it wasn't what it is now, but it did have some kind of something going on there. I just don't remember exactly what it was. And then much later on, they came out with the Game Boy, or not the Game Boy, the Nintendo 3DS, and it is exactly to the note the idea that I gave them. The only thing that I didn't give them as far as an idea was the dual screen thing. Now, I'm not saying that they took my idea, but I am saying that it is very coincidental that about 10 years later, they came out with exactly what I told them about, which copyrights generally only last a certain amount of time. And one of the copyrights that I've seen, patents and stuff like that, they usually last about 10 years. So in case I patented the idea, they were safe to have come out with it by then. So it's a possibility. And that's why I urge you guys, and I mean I really urge you guys, if you really want EV Evolutions to be a thing, start barraging Nintendo on Twitter, on YouTube, on the phone, on emails, on everything that you possibly can. Barrage Nintendo, barrage Facebook, or Pokemon. Send them pictures of what you've drawn out for what you think would be a great EV evolution, with stats and move pools and typings and everything. Make them do this. If every Pokemon fan out there, or at least most of them, seem like they want to have new EV evolutions, and nobody really cares whether or not they get credit if their idea is quote-unquote stolen, then I guarantee you, I absolutely guarantee you, that Pokemon will come out with new EV evolutions. And personally, I see it as worth it. And there are a lot of gaming companies, I don't know of Nintendo doing this, but there are a lot of gaming companies that they look at stuff that people have made, like indie games and things like that, and they actually hire those individuals. So you could very well possibly even end up getting a job with Nintendo. I don't know, but it's a possibility. But even then, even if you didn't, it's still worth it just to have a Dragon type EV Evolution, or all of the other ones for that matter. But anyways, that was a long rant, and it was kind of pointless. So, moving on to the next thing. One thing that I've seen a lot of people saying that they wanted to happen in the newest games, even before 7th generation was confirmed, is they wanted to see Pokemon and Me not go away. And I like Pokemon and Me, but I don't. So I'm kind of neutral on the idea. I felt like it didn't have enough features, and most of the people who said they wanted to see Pokemon and Me continue to exist said that they wanted more features, things like grooming and customization and things like that. And as we've seen in the trailer with the little Porygon blow dryer, there is more features. I think that you will no longer have to pay some random NPC in the game in order to give your Furofuru one of its little haircuts, as gimmicky and boring as that is, but whatever. I think that instead you'll be able to do it yourself, and there will be all kinds of customization possibilities because of that. So that's a thing. And personally, on the really speculation side of things, I really want to see, and I really think that we will see, that this won't just be for gimmicky Pokemon like Furofuru or Pikachu. I really feel like there's a possibility that this is going to end up being a thing for every Pokemon, where whenever you go into a Wi-Fi battle against your friends and your Totodile pops out, your Totodile's got all kinds of cool stuff going on with it, and it's got a really fashionable haircut even though it has no hair. That would be really cool. I would like to see that. And I think that that will end up being a thing. So, yeah, there's that. But anyways, that was just a little small note. The next thing to talk about is I really feel like Mimikyu, which is a Pokemon that just got announced. In case you don't know what it is, it's a Ghost and Fairy type, which is a really cool new typing. But it's wearing a costume of Pikachu because it wants to be Pikachu or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it was put forward, but that was basically the idea, was it wants to be that Pokemon, or it wants to be like that Pokemon or something. And I thought that was really cool. But here's what I think they're going to be doing with that. I think that it's going to be similar to Cosplay Pikachu, where it's able to change its costume to different Pokemon. A lot of people have already put out fan art of Mimikyu with all of the Kanto starters, but I think that it will be able to change its costume into other Pokemon, and it'll probably have some signature move that is replaceable depending on what costume it's wearing. That would be really cool, and especially if, for a competitive standpoint, when they do the Pokemon preview or whatever it's called, where right before you go into a battle you see what the other team is and all that, if it doesn't show what costume Mimikyu's actually wearing, I really, really, really like that idea. And then you don't really know what type coverage Mimikyu is going to bring to the opponent's side of the game, which would make things a lot of fun. Anyways, that also was another really small note. But moving on to the next thing. Oh, I already covered that. Um, as far as the starters, a lot of people have been speculating a lot on the typing and the final evolution, and this, that, and another thing. This is my speculation. This has nothing to do with the trailer, but this is my speculation as to, excuse me, what they will be. Rowlet, is that right? Rowlet or Rowley? Okay, Rowlet, the little grass and flying type that's an owl, and personally not a big fan of it. Although, if my speculation is correct, probably going to be in the top tier of awesomeness for the starters. I believe will be evolving into a Griffin, which, if you don't know what a Griffin is, I apologize that my editing abilities is slim to none, and I can't really show you a picture of a Griffin, but I believe that it's going to be evolving to a Griffin, which would make it quadrupedal, and if one of the quote-unquote leaks that has happened recently is correct about there being a ground type, it would make it very likely that it could possibly receive the ground typing by dropping the flying typing, which would make sense because of the fact that it would be dropping one type for another, and it is the only dual-typed Pokemon at its first evolutionary form of the starters, which I really feel like because of that, it would only make sense for them to get rid of the flying typing later on, which would play in a lot, giving it really good move coverage. No. Because of the fact that it would be a grass and ground type with potentially some really strong flying type moves. The next one is Litten. I really feel like it's going to evolve into a Manticore. They introduced the first fire and poison type Pokemon ever. I do not remember what it's called, so forgive me for that. But they did introduce the first fire and poison type Pokemon, and I really like the idea of a fire and poison type. It's something that Pokemon has hinted towards since the very first generation, with many fire type Pokemon being able to learn moves that are poison typing, like Smog or Poison Gas, and it really feels like they should have more than just one fire and poison type Pokemon. And a Manticore is, if I remember correctly, it's got a lion's body, a human head, sometimes has wings, and it always has a scorpion tail, which the lion body really feels like it would be appropriate because of the fact that it's already either a lion or a tiger, and the scorpion tail would obviously be poison typing. Now the wings, not always on a Manticore, but still. And then lastly is Poplio, which is the water type Pokemon, and I feel like it's going to be a mermaid. Seals, in my opinion, look very similar to, oh god, what is it called? The sea cow. Manatees. And I feel like maybe its second evolution will be a manatee, and the manatee was often mistaken as a mermaid. And mermaids are also another mythological creature, and a mixture of other creatures to make one like super awesome creature. And um, I really feel like this is a very strong possibility, especially considering the fact that if you are watching anything about Sun and Moon, chances are you've probably already seen somebody speculating that the theme for Sun and Moon is going to be alchemy. And if you've ever heard anything about alchemy, you've probably heard about the combining of humans or the combining of animals and creating chimera. And all three of those animals are classed as chimera-typed mythological creatures, which it would make sense that all three starters, if the theme is going to be alchemy, will be chimera. So that is definitely a thing that is a strong possibility. I really feel like that's going to happen. I really hope that it's going to happen. And even if they do a lot of things, and I mean a lot of things that I'm not happy with this next generation, because they've really hinted at a lot of things changing, and some of them I'm not feeling like I'm going to be too fond of. Having the ability to have all three of those starters and their full evolutions being three of my very favorite mythological creatures and all of that, I really feel like I would still be willing to play the game. Moving on to the next thing. Speaking about recent leaks, there have been some quote-unquote leaks. I don't know how believable I want to say they are. I really don't feel like they're believable, and I definitely don't want the suspicions as far as the starters to be correct. Rowlet, not that worried about. The Poplio evolving into a mermaid, not that worried about, although the art is horrible. Looks like a Disney character. But, the Litten evolving into a wrestler, that means that we would have another fire and fighting type starter. There are too many. Stop making fire and fighting type starters. Stop it. It's not okay. It should not be done anymore. It doesn't need to be done. It's bad. Okay? It's bad. But one thing that they did allegedly leak, I don't really feel like it's a leak yet because none of it's really confirmed. But one thing that they did allegedly leak is something that I feel like it is a strong possibility for this game. For 20 years, the basic gameplay for Pokemon has not changed in the slightest bit. It has been the same for 20 years. There have been minor tweaks, minor improvements, minor setbacks, but still, in every Pokemon game, you go and you challenge 8 gyms. You get 8 gym badges. You challenge the Pokemon League. You defeat the Elite Four, you challenge the champion. You defeat the champion, you become the champion. Somewhere along the line, you foil the plans of some evil team. You defeat, and if you're any normal Pokemon trainer, capture. Sorry, you guys, I have the hiccups. Capture whatever legendary is the legendary that just so happens to be on the title screen of the game, because, you know, a 10-year-old can capture a god. And then, you know, the game's pretty much over. You got a little bit of in-game stuff to do, but that's usually pretty disappointing. And then you wait until the next remake or the next generation. That's pretty much how it's been for 20 years. And one of the things that this alleged leak, which it's actually 3 alleged leaks saying the exact same thing from 3 different regions, claiming to be 3 different people, leaking the exact same information with the exact same backstory, which is one of the reasons why I don't really find it all that believable. But the one thing that I do find plausible is that in the Aloha region, there isn't going to be an Elite Four, there isn't going to be gyms. It'll be your job to build those gyms and build the Pokemon League, and then the gym leaders and the Elite Four will just magically appear. I feel like this is a possibility. One, because of the fact that the basic gameplay of Pokemon hasn't changed for 20 years. And 2, because of the fact that the most popular games on the market right now are games where you build things. Whether it be like the new Far Cry Primal, where you gather stuff and then you put it together and you have a new item, or whether it be more like Minecraft or Fallout 4, where you actually build locations. And I really feel like there's going to be a strong possibility of you having to dig through the region and build a gym and possibly even pick the theme of that gym, so that you can potentially have the ability to determine the typing that the gym leader will use, which I think would be really cool, because then people like me who don't understand why after 20 years every type has gotten a gym except for dark type. Why is that? I mean, I don't think that ground type got a gym either, but I mean, rock and ground pretty much go together, so you know, there's that. But you know, it's been 20 years. Why is it that dark type still doesn't have a gym? You know, and you could potentially have the ability to make that whatever gym be a dark type gym. And myself personally, because I do like playing competitively, and playing against a dark type NPC in the game is about the closest I feel that you're going to get to playing competitively, because you're going to have all of the annoying shenanigans screwing you over at every turn. I personally would make it the last gym. But anyways, I do feel like that's a possibility. I feel like it's plausible. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. Would I like to see it happen? I don't know. It really depends on how it's executed. If it's executed really well, then absolutely, that would be freaking awesome. But if it's executed poorly, then no, please, just leave it alone. The system works. It's worked for 20 years. If you can genuinely make it better, and you do testing where you have people who love playing Pokemon, that have played Pokemon for 20 years straight, have played all of the Pokemon games, and have enjoyed every single one of them like myself, and you have them play the Pokemon games, and you have them decide their opinion on how you've made it, and give you their input on how you've made it, and tell you, okay, you should do this differently, and you actually listen to them, and you do this with at least a minimum of 1,000 Gen 1 through Gen 6 players, then yes, by all means, go ahead and do it, because it has serious potential to be really awesome. But otherwise, please don't bother. Just don't fix it if it isn't broke. Moving on to the next thing, though. This is the last one, isn't it? That's my end card. Okay, and then the last thing that I wanted to bring up, and this one is just as much a very angry rant as it is everything else. And it always will be whenever this one website is brought up, because I really feel like they've ruined the game. And that opinion will never change. But these new gyms that we're seeing in the trailers that are also in the titles, they look like revives, but as we've seen in the trailer that we've gotten recently, each one of them is a different color, and they have different typings on them and everything else. And all of that. This is my thoughts on what that is. It's already been made pretty obvious that they will most likely be a one-time thing use per battle, and it's going to be, pretty simple. You beef up a move for one shot or just one move on one Pokemon or something like that. But here's why I think they're doing it. I think that they spent too much time listening to Smogon players. People who do not matter. People whose opinions are irrelevant. If you're a Smogon player and I've offended you, quite frankly, I'm not sorry. If you honestly support what Smogon has done to the metagame, if you honestly believe that they had any right whatsoever, then you're irrelevant, your opinion is irrelevant to me, and that will never change. I don't care. And if I've hurt your feelings, you, in my opinion, you honestly deserve it. Because you hurt my game. Plain and simple. I don't enjoy Wi-Fi battling because of the fact that I can't battle against random people, because whenever I do, and I pull out my Mega Kangaskhan, or some other Pokemon that's been banned, or I use some move that's been banned, or my Pokemon aren't all in the same bullshit tier, then that person just quits playing. They're just like, oh, well, you're a cheater, and I'm not going to play with you no more. No, I'm not cheating. I'm not generating Pokemon into the game. I'm working every bit for every move, every EV, every IV, every Pokemon, everything. The closest thing to cheating that I'm doing is I Wonder Trade like freaking crazy. Every reject that I get whenever I'm breeding, whether I'm breeding for a shiny or breeding for IVs or anything like that, I Wonder Trade. And I'm not Wonder Trading specifically so that I'm hoping that I'll get a 6 or 5 IV Pokemon. I'm not Wonder Trading so that I get some Pokemon that's already broken because it's level 100 and had all of its EVs done, and it's just being sent out by some really awesome professional battler or whatever. I'm doing it just simply so that I have the variety of Pokemon to choose from, because I enjoy training the Pokemon and breeding the Pokemon and all that more than I do actually battling them, because Smogon has ruined my battling experience. And one thing that Smogon has done is Smogon has pretty much banned every Pokemon that is Mega Evolving. I don't know, because I don't really follow Smogon, but I don't think that there are any Pokemon that Mega Evolve that haven't been banned. And Pokemon probably sees that, and they see that people aren't using Mega Evolving Pokemon, and they probably think, oh, well, then that means that people probably just don't want Mega Evolution anymore. So we're going to stop using Mega Evolution, and we're going to stop making new evolutions. And I really think that that's what that is. I think that that has been a replacement to the Mega Evolution, and we're not going to see any new Mega Evolutions of Pokemon anymore. We're not going to see any Primal Reversions. We're not going to see anything like that, because Smogon players banned them all, and now because of that, people don't use them, and it's not fair. It's not fair that people that are willing to work their butts off to find a strategy to be able to beat Mega Kangaskhan can't, use or battle against Mega Kangaskhan in the metagame because of the fact that Mega Kangaskhan has been banned, so nobody wants to use it because this is cheating. And I don't want to make this a 45-minute rant, but let's just move on, and let's just say that I don't think that Mega Evolution is going to be a thing anymore. I don't think they're going to be getting rid of the Mega Evolutions, although it's a possibility because you got a bracelet on, and it's not a keystone bracelet, but I do think that they're not going to be